The National Desk, America's News Now.
So to hear words that the Key Bridge has collapsed, it's shocking.
The Key Bridge is gone. What led to the collapse, how the recovery is going, and the wider impacts this Baltimore bridge will have on the country for weeks and even years to come. The protests begin. Both sides picket the Supreme Court as justices hear arguments for and against an abortion pill, how the justices are leaning on a possible decision. Then independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has announced his pick for VP. Why his campaign has the Biden team concerned. This is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Dee Dee Gatton, and as we begin our show, breaking news. At least 6 people remain missing after this morning's horrific crash of a container ship into Baltimore's Key Bridge. Although NTSB says they are not searching for specific numbers, they do not know how many cars and people were on the bridge when it collapsed. Search and rescue operations continue to save whomever they can. The National Desk, Brad Bell, is in Baltimore with the latest.
The webcam video of the crash and collapse seems not real, but it is. You can see the dark outline of the ship approaching, heavily loaded with containers. On the bridge, the blinking amber lights of an 8-member pothole repair crew, and then 2 cars crossing just 10 seconds before calamity. The Francis Scott Key Bridge over the outer Baltimore harbor, crumbling on impact. Responding firefighters not believing what they see.
Be advised, the Key Bridge is gone.
Quickly, 2 people are rescued. One is badly injured, the other uninjured. Baltimore's fire chief calling in search teams from across the region in hopes of finding the rest of the workers believed to have gone down with the bridge.
We are still very much in an active search and rescue posture.
The mayor of Baltimore declaring a state of emergency.
But never would you think that you would physically see the Key Bridge tumble down like that. It looked like something out of an action movie.
The enormity of this disaster fully revealed by daylight. Authorities stressing the focus is on human life, but also reporting that the big container ship headed to Sri Lanka from Baltimore had lost power and the ability to steer. The local pilot and crew on board sending a warning, allowing police to halt traffic on the bridge just in time. The belief is this was an accident caused by a mechanical failure.
I want to be clear that there is no specific or credible information to suggest that there are ties to terrorism in this incident.
The entire Port of Baltimore now closed to ships both inbound and outbound. This vital link in the supply chain broken. Maryland Governor Wes Moore promising an all-out effort to recover, but acknowledging it will take time.
For every single one of us who are Marylanders, the words that the Key Bridge is gone, it still shakes us, because for 47 years, that's all we've known.
This evening, the ship remains stuck, a large section of that bridge resting across its bow. But already the engineers have arrived on scene to begin planning for how to rebuild and reopen this port. In Baltimore, Brad Bell reporting.
And while the bridge collapse in Baltimore is devastating to the region, it has also halted all shipping at the city's port until further notice. National correspondent Janae Bowen has a look at the potential impact on the supply chain and economy for the entire country.
The shocking collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge after being hit by a cargo ship has suspended vessel traffic at the Port of Baltimore. Ships headed to Baltimore, now in a holding pattern 20 miles to the south in the Chesapeake Bay.
The problem is not only the ship, but you need to also remove the remnants of the bridge from the seaway, because as long as that bridge is there, nobody can use the Port of Baltimore.
There are fears this halt in operations could hurt the economy.
The Port of Baltimore is one of the nation's largest shipping hubs. and I've been there a number of times as a senator and as a vice president. It handles a record amount of cargo last year.
The port handles the largest volume of cars and light trucks, heavy farm and construction machinery, and imported sugar in the U.S.
You will see large hikes that are temporary in a few select goods. We may especially see that, for example, with imported cars in the Northeast.
The impact could also be global. Last year, the port handled a record 52.3 million tons of foreign cargo, worth $80 billion.
Well, unfortunately for a lot of our friends and allies around the world who rely on us for our coal exports, this is going to hit them as well, because they are no longer going to be able to receive those shipments in a timely manner.
But some experts say rerouting ships to other East Coast ports will blunt some of the economic and supply chain impact.
It's very likely all the cargo that went through Baltimore is going to be redirected to go through Norfolk and through New York and New Jersey.
And Didi, as vessels are rerouted away from the port of Baltimore, we can expect shipping delays. There is no word on how long vessel traffic will be suspended.
We've heard from a number of leaders today. Janae, how is the White House responding?
So President Biden delivered remarks on the incident earlier today. He pointed out how vital both the bridge and the port are for the nation. He wants the federal government to pay for the entire reconstruction of the bridge, and he's calling on Congress to support his efforts. Didi.
Live from Washington, D.C., Janae Bowens, thank you. And right now, severe weather is impacting the central and eastern U.S. today, with rain and thunderstorms forecast in many areas east of the Mississippi River. More than 20 million people are under flood alerts. Flooding could impact Florida and Georgia along with a stretch of the East Coast from Virginia to Rhode Island through Thursday. Parts of Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio could see severe thunderstorms. And more snow possible in the upper Great Lakes by tomorrow morning as blizzard conditions in the plains and Midwest wind down. Temps in much of the plains are still up to 25 degrees below average today, and that could continue tomorrow. The Supreme Court appears unlikely to limit access to a widely used abortion pill. After hearing arguments from anti-abortion doctors and the Justice Department, justices are questioning the increase in universal injunctions. Those are court orders that block policies that apply to everyone based on claimed injuries by a small handful of individuals.
Why can't the court specify that this relief runs to precisely the parties before the court, opposed to the agency in general and saying, agency, you can't do this anywhere?
Do we have to also entertain your argument that no one else in the world can have this drug, or no one else in America should have this drug in order to protect your clients?
According to the FDA's data, out of the nearly 6 million abortions using mifepristone from 2000 to 2022, there were 32 reports of deaths. The FDA adds those deaths can't be directly attributed to mifepristone. Studies show its safety is on par with drugs like ibuprofen and acetaminophen. A decision in the case is expected by the end of June or early July. As the justices met inside, protesters both in favor and opposed to abortion clashed outside. Anti-abortion advocates argue the pill carries a safety risk for women, while proponents see this as a pseudo-abortion ban and argue that mifepristone is the best way for women to lawfully end their early pregnancies at this point. A new gag order has been placed upon Donald Trump. This time, the judge overseeing his hush money trial that will begin on April 15th says Trump may not publicly comment on potential witnesses, prosecutors, court staff, or jurors. But this order does not protect Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg because he is an elected official. Trump has pleaded not guilty to all charges and repeatedly called allegations a witch hunt and a hoax. The share price of former President Trump's Truth Social finished up 16% on its first day of trading. This came after a huge jump in price minutes after going public. Trading in the Trump Media and Technology Group, given the ticker DJT, was halted this morning due to volatility, and then upon returning saw a decline in price for the rest of the day, but still closed 8 points higher than it began. New information now. A Tennessee company that makes lawnmower parts has to pay a nearly $300,000 penalty for hiring 10 children. The Labor Department found immigrant minors as young as 14 working near dangerous equipment at Tough Torque. The firm also has to use $1.5 million to help the children. A Tough Torque representative said they had fake names and were hired, though, through a staffing agency. Coming up next here, new polling shows who's ahead in the 2024 presidential race, plus where RFK Jr. stands as he announces his running mate. Then new information about why some cancer patients develop drug resistance while others don't. Then how Florida residents are reacting to the governor's new restrictions on social media for kids under 14. We'll be right back. As we come back on air, a live look outside of the Baltimore harbor. The port is now blocked after the horrific and tragic cargo ship crash this morning that collapsed the Key Bridge. Stay with the National Desk this evening for more updates as we continue to follow the latest out of Baltimore. The Israeli-Hamas war continues despite a non-binding ceasefire declaration by the UN Security Council. According to the IDF, they struck 60 terror targets in the last day, including returning fire at a Hamas missile launch site located at a humanitarian zone. Both Hamas and Hezbollah in Lebanon launched rockets towards Israel after the vote yesterday. Meantime, in Washington, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin met with Israeli Minister of Defense Yoav Gallant today at the Pentagon after meeting with Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Security Advisor Jake Sullivan last night. Yesterday, Israel canceled the trip of two top advisors to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu after the United States has failed to veto a UN resolution calling for a ceasefire. But Gallant was already in D.C. While Israel seeks continued military aid, Austin pressured Gallant to reduce casualties.
Protecting Palestinian civilians from harm is both a moral necessity and a strategic imperative. In Gaza today, the number of civilian casualties is far too high, and the amount of humanitarian aid is far too low.
While the world pushes for more aid into Gaza, Hamas is asking for Western countries to stop using airdrops. The ruling party of Gaza called the delivery method offensive, wrong, inappropriate, and useless. Hamas wants more aid trucks to be brought in and blamed Israel for blocking them. Israel denies they are impeding aid and claims Hamas tries to steal the aid on the trucks. The DNC announcing today President Biden officially won the Missouri primary over the weekend. There are 18 states left that have primaries, but both Biden and Trump each secured their party's nominations on March 12th. New polling out today shows President Biden is gaining ground on Donald Trump and has tied or taken the lead in 3 swing states as we look ahead towards November. The president now leads in Wisconsin by 1 point, according to a new Bloomberg poll. Biden was trailing Trump there by 4 points last month, and in Pennsylvania, where the two presidential candidates are all tied up after Trump held a 6-point advantage in February. They are also tied in Michigan. As those polls remain close, independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. announced his running mate today. Recent polls show him with double-digit support, and this is cause for concern for some Democrats as they focus on countering him and other third-party candidates.
The next Vice President of the United States of America, Nicole Shanahan. Thank you all.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. announcing that California-based attorney Nicole Shanahan will be his vice presidential running mate.
I've asked Nicole to use the platform of the vice presidency to speak for all, not just young people, but all the invisible, voiceless Americans who feel let down by our government.
Shanahan, who was previously married to a Google co-founder, has been one of the largest donors to Kennedy's campaign.
These are two of my political convictions I hold today: to serve peace and to help those in poverty.
While Kennedy is running a long-shot campaign, he's currently polling higher than any third-party candidate since Ross Perot in 1992. And this is catching Democrats' attention.
Take the money and run, 'cause you found out that it wasn't hard.
The Democratic National Committee has put together a team to focus on independent and third-party candidates in an attempt to dissuade voters from supporting them. Those voters, they fear, could pull votes from Biden and help Trump get elected in November.
These third-party candidates are a huge, huge, huge problem, and there's a number of them. If you look at RFK Jr., it's the name recognition issue. There are still states in this country, obviously, I mean, Georgia is one of them, I will name, where the Kennedy name is beloved.
But the rest of RFK Jr.'s family members have publicly denounced his campaign, saying it's perilous for the country. His younger sister, Carrie, posting this photo on X this month with the caption, "President Biden, you make the world better."
Consumer alert, egg prices are near historic highs worldwide ahead of Easter and Passover celebrations. For a second year in a row, prices remain elevated because of avian flu outbreaks, high demand, and increasing farming costs. According to government data, the average U.S. price for a dozen eggs in February was $2.99, and that's down from a year ago when egg costs $4.21, but still significantly more than 2021 when they were $1.59. New details: Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich will remain in a Russian prison until at least June 30th. The country extended his detention today. Gershkovich was arrested in March of 2023 on espionage charges. Russian authorities have not provided evidence to support the allegations. Gershkovich has denied them, and the U.S. government considers him wrongfully detained. Visa and MasterCard have agreed to settle an antitrust case filed in 2005. The settlement would lower U.S. merchant fees by $30 billion over 5 years. Swipe fees generally cost them between 2 and 4% of transactions customers make. Both credit card networks say access to credit will not be impacted. A court in New York still has to approve the settlement. Rapper Sean Diddy Combs was unaware that federal agents were onto him before they raided his LA and Miami homes yesterday as part of a human trafficking investigation. That's according to TMZ, citing sources with direct knowledge. The outlet says Diddy was about to spend spring break with his family when officials stopped him at a Miami airport yesterday. Julian Assange's extradition to the United States will have to wait as a United Kingdom court will allow more time for an appeal. The court says the extradition could go through if the U.S. can assure that Assange's First Amendment rights are protected and that he would not face the death penalty. U.S. prosecutors say that the First Amendment might not be applicable because Assange is not a U.S. citizen. He's accused of conspiring to release thousands of classified documents and State Department cables back in 2010. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton has cut a deal with prosecutors to avoid a trial for felony securities fraud charges he's faced for nearly a decade. Paxton will perform community service, take legal action courses, education courses, and pay nearly $300,000 in restitution. He's not entering a plea under the agreement, but denies all wrongdoing. And Krispy Kreme shares are up around 39% from yesterday, following the news of a partnership with McDonald's. The two brands said 3 kinds of Krispy Kreme donuts will be sold at McDonald's starting later this year. The phased rollout will be complete by late 2026, and you can also get a free glazed donut at Krispy Kreme locations tonight until 9 p.m. Could there be an end to cancer recurrence? New research is showing promise to understand why some cancer patients develop drug resistance while others don't. Medical reporter Liz Bonus explains.
Hey everybody, this kind of cancer research looking into a whole new frontier. It's still in the laboratory stages, but it shows promise like nothing else.
It's based on the idea when cancer returns, it's often because the cells build up resistance to drugs that initially work to treat them. They also sometimes develop in a whole new place. So Marissa Howard, a bioengineer at George Mason University, has published new research that looks at why. She calls them exosomes.
Basically, exosomes are these little bubbles of cell information that a cell will kick out of it, and it gives that information to its neighbors, to other cell types.
This information is sort of a form of eavesdropping, she says. It tells those other cell types what's happening inside or how it's reacting to the environment. Marissa's discovered a way to isolate exosome packages from tumor cells removed in surgery. The idea is if you could block these packages from coming out, you would have a whole new area to target treatment.
So where are you now in this journey of how we use this information?
Now we're actually applying it to ovarian cancer patients. So as you know, ovarian cancer responds to therapy well in the beginning, but a majority of ovarian cancer patients actually develop drug resistance.
Marissa's team has now launched a clinical trial. They use tissue taken in a biopsy of those with ovarian cancer before or after chemotherapy to find out why a person becomes resistant to treatment compared to those not yet treated.
Since we can unlock this new layer of information, maybe we can provide some benefit for researchers to develop new therapeutic targets.
She told me we're likely at least several years away from a final therapeutic like this, but we do expect to see results from early trials within a couple of years. With your health news, I'm Liz Bonus reporting.
Coming up, there's been a major shakeup of leadership at Boeing as the company continues to face scrutiny. The changes unions now say are necessary. That's when we come back. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering issues that matter to you. We're taking the pulse of America.
I don't think it's in the governor's hands. I think it should be in parents' hands.
Leave it to mom and dad, definitely.
Hours after Governor DeSantis led a bill signing ceremony at a charter school in Jacksonville, parents all over Florida are reacting to one of the toughest laws in the country, aimed at protecting children from the dangers of social media.
Being buried in those devices all day is not the best way to grow up. It's not the best way to get a good education.
They are $100 billion company. We're profiting off of our children and harm to our children.
The major changes in the law include Platforms like TikTok and Instagram must prohibit kids under the age of 14 from having accounts. Those aged 14 and older can use the technology with a parent's permission. And adult websites must block all minors from accessing sexually explicit material.
Every day, artificial intelligence is being integrated into more and more businesses. And now, CAL FIRE is taking it a step further to help keep Californians safe as we head into wildfire season. They're using AI to track wildfires before they get out of control.
And what's great about it is the AI is able to pick up an anomaly or a smoke in over 1,000 cameras statewide in that camera view.
This will allow firefighters to respond to a fire quicker than ever before. The cameras have been used by fire personnel for years, but they have never had this level of real-time mapping.
A major shakeup at the top as Boeing navigates the fallout from safety issues highlighted in its 737 MAX 9 fleet. Boeing CEO Dave Calhoun announced he's stepping down, and board chair Larry Kellner and commercial plane CEO Stan Deal are also being replaced. Calhoun has been at the helm, continually reassuring the public and lawmakers on the steps the company is taking to ensure their planes are safe.
We think that the next Boeing CEO should be an aerospace engineer. Boeing for decades thrived under a strong engineering culture, but it seems like since the MBAs have been in charge, we've just lurched from crisis to crisis.
NFL fans, the game may look a little different when the league kicks off on September 5th. While we don't know who will be playing in that game, we now know that for the first time, both teams will line up on the same side of the field for that initial kickoff. Owners agreed 29-3 to radically change kickoffs to reduce the number of dead plays on touchbacks. Under the new alignment, the kicking team will line up at the opposing 40-yard line, and the receiving team blockers will be 5 yards away at the 35. Touchbacks will now give the receiving team the ball at the 30 instead of the 25. Proponents for the change say will bring excitement back to the kickoff. That's going to do it for us tonight of this edition. We invite you to join us again for this evening for more coverage on America's top stories on the National Desk. I'm Dee Dee Gatton. Thanks for watching.